So welcome everybody to the next in our Meet the Funder sessions. And the team is assembling here, so I'll just quickly talk a little bit about these sessions. So my name is Kevin Duggan. I'm the Director of Development here at Games for Change, and I've been moderating these sessions the last couple of years, and this is really a great opportunity, I think, for us to hear directly from folks who are really supporting the work of game and immersive media makers, and so it's a really unique opportunity. So these are short sessions, they're half hour, generally presentation, and then we'll hopefully leave plenty of room for Q&A. So because these sessions are short, we ask folks to post your questions to the chat field, chat thread, but hold your questions till the presentation is done, because the answer to your question may occur during the presentation. So hang on, and please keep your questions brief, specific, relevant, and also there's an opportunity to reach out to our presenters through the People tab. You can direct message them, and there may be other, if there's other ways of contacting them, that'll come up in the presentation. So very, briefly, I'm very excited to learn about this fund, which I was unfamiliar with. This is a $1 million annual program focused on supporting Black game developers, and with funding, production, marketing support via Humble's publishing label, Humble Games. And I would like to welcome Site Nkube, if I got that right, I hope, John Paulson, Kamini Tiwari, and Justin Woodward. In the interest of time, I won't read your bios since it's available to folks. And why don't we just jump right in? So take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm going to take a second here to share a presentation with you guys, and we'll get started. That is not working. All right. Can everybody see my screen okay? All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We're really excited to be here today to talk more about Humble Games and the Black Game Developer Fund. I'm Kamini Tiwari. I'm the VP of Social Impact here at Humble Bundle, and I'm excited to have alongside me John Paulson, who's the Portfolio Director of Humble Games. He started the publishing program for Humble 4 years ago, and joining us are our strategic advisors and game scouts for BGDF, Justin Woodward and Site Nkube. Today, we're going to spend most of our time talking and leaving room for open Q&A so that you have a chance to ask questions and hear from all of us. But before we do that, I thought it would be helpful to share a bit of background about Humble Games, Humble Bundle, and BGDF for those of you who may not be as familiar. I'll start with Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle was founded 11 years ago, built on the foundation of being a force for good through gaming. Since day one, every purchase made has had a charitable component. Over the years, the Humble community has supported hundreds of causes and raised nearly $200 million for charities, which is pretty astounding. It's one of the reasons that I chose to come to Humble, being a force for good. In 2017, we created our publishing arm, which is now called Humble Games. One of the key tenets of Humble Games has been to support and amplify the creative voices of indie developers and to help launch their games to a global audience. Last summer, we recognized there was much more we could do when George Floyd's murder further fueled the Black Lives Matter movement, and it prompted a much larger discussion about racial inequity. Here at Humble, after many internal team discussions, that led to the creation of the $1 million annual Black Game Developer Fund. With BGDF, our goal is to empower and to unite communities through gaming and to use our platform to elevate diverse voices in the games industry to help achieve racial equity. Through the program, what we really want is to help Black game developers have increased access to funding and have more opportunities to make great games. To be eligible, individual or independent game developers must identify either racially or ethnically as Black, or game development companies that apply to the fund must be at least 50% Black owned. Each applicant must also submit an unpublished, unreleased game for consideration. In the first year of the fund, we're really excited to share that we've signed 17 studios as a part of BGDF. The team spanned the world from Uganda to Brazil to London and Montreal to Vermont and California. Each game that is included is truly unique. They represent many original stories, interesting characters, worlds, ambitious gameplay, and design. We're really excited to support their efforts. Now I'd like to turn it over to JP to take a deeper dive into how we sign devs for the fund, as well as the key learnings we are taking into year 2. JP, take it away.
Thanks, Kamini. The evaluation process begins when devs complete the application on the URL below. We have a pitch deck template on the application page to help devs organize their pitch too. The committee reviews applications on a rolling basis. Justin or Site may then begin a dialogue with those who demonstrate their team's development capabilities, innovative and thorough game design and gameplay ideas, and commercial viability for the game. For those receiving the funds, we explain the terms and provide guidance on outlining an achievable prototype, which is added to our simple 2-page contract. Once we both sign everything, Humble shares the funds and we let the developers focus on achieving their vision. Each dev will have a midpoint check-in meeting with us to review the progress of the build and optionally review their updated pitch deck. Iterating on these 2 items is crucial for success in pitching the publishers and investors alike. Once developers have completed the prototype, they can submit it to Humble Games for publishing consideration, request more funding, self-publish, or even go work with another publisher after Humble has had a chance to review the project. The website at the bottom of the slide is the most important thing to remember, though, where you can find the eligibility requirements, the extensive FAQ, the application, and how to reach us. As we learned from Justin and Site and the developers who applied to the fund the past year, being a Black indie game dev exacerbates the challenges that an indie faces, and it shows the cracks of inequity surrounding available opportunities. One of the key things we learned and have adapted with BGDF is our funding focus. We found that often devs need support to get their projects off the ground. So instead of fully funding a few projects, we shifted focus on investing in prototypes, or what we call startup funds. This allows us to support more teams to go beyond mere concept, where having a solid playable build can be a real game changer when pitching to publishers and other investors. Related to our efforts around outreach and engagement, that brings us to talks like we're doing here today. Justin and Site continue to do speaking engagements in their regions, and we are all focused on continuing the conversation with game press sites, including TechRadar and gamesindustry.biz, and have also broadened that reach to mainstream news outlets. We want to continue to get the word out about BGDF, and more importantly, the developers we fund. Help us by sharing with your network or anyone you know who might be interested. We'd be also happy to share more insights with anyone who is interested as well. Our efforts to accelerate and support, we've learned that while startup funds are great, those can get our developers only so far. Devs need additional support to be able to compete with others who are seeking investment. We're researching tips, tools, and a knowledge base, and exploring how to connect BGDF recipients and other devs together through various avenues. To increase support further, we're also chatting with huge potential partners in and outside of gaming, where those companies are also dedicated to social justice and racial equity. Any partners interested in speaking to us further about a potential collaboration can reach us at the email below, bgdf@humblebundle.com. So with our focus refined for year 2, we're thrilled for what's ahead with BGDF, and we hope you are too. While my team at Humble Games brings publishing expertise, Kamini and our communications team bring their respective expertise as well. It's really our advisors, Justin and Site, who have been instrumental. Without them, BGDF would not be possible. So before we open up for questions, I'd love for Justin and Site to each be able to share some of their highlights from this year, starting with Site.
Okay. Hey, everyone. So I can't believe it's been a year, actually. It's wow, like I can't believe it's been a year. And going through the fund throughout the course of the year, of course, we learned a lot of things, like John mentioned, that we have to adapt the way we do the fund according to how the problems and challenges that Black game developers face. So though the developers are spread all over the world, there are a lot of common problems that people face that we've had to kind of rework how we do the fund, and that's what John was talking about. But something else that's been a highlight from the year was being able to fund studios from Africa, because you don't usually get funding opportunities, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. I can speak more of because I've had my eye out for years looking for resources for game developers from our region, and they're pretty hard to come by. They're really hard to come by. I think only recently we've had publishers in the market, so being able to have people who have been working on great projects, able to connect with publishers in the West, specifically Humble Games, with the fund, has been something which I don't think it's a rare opportunity. It's a rare opportunity, and seeing how excited and happy and how much, and most importantly, how much this has helped the devs. I think that's been the biggest, my favorite moment, my highest moment, was seeing how much it's actually helping devs. Because a couple of dollars actually goes a really long way here and can do so much for game developers. So it's something which I want to see more of in the future, like not just for game development, but even just for games related events. Like a few dollars can go a long way, because games are pretty expensive to get into, and I don't want us to be left behind. So yeah, that's my high point. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite an amazing year. I mean, from the moment that Humble started the fund, and then communication with John and Eduardo, and then Comni, it has been an amazing experience. I think for the most part I'm also a developer. I started 12 years ago in the business, and it was a struggle for me. I had to hustle every penny that I made and do consulting and do all kinds of things while working on my master's degree. And then when I really kind of kicked open the door and figured out how to do things, I started to notice that others were having difficulties too. So being able to be in a position to communicate with a lot of developers that were kind of like me when I started has been big. I also work with developers on another front with media, with my company, the Media Indie Exchange, and I see all these other opportunities in Canada and in Sweden for funding, and there isn't that here in the United States and in other parts of the world, and especially for those who don't have the opportunities, such as Black game developers. I feel a lot of Black game developers are left behind because of the struggles that they have to deal with, or that we have to deal with day to day, and just not having access. And this fund has been amazing because it has granted access to not only funds, but also, our expertise and network in the industry. And we've built a community, with these developers. And the year has just gone by with the evolution of how we started, where we were starting with let's do a few. And then, this is what Black game developers need. They need prototyping funding just to get to the next stage. They need mentorship. They need communication with Xbox. They need dev kits. Those are things that some of us take for granted being a part of that, like that indie community and figuring out a way in. And it's just amazing to see that we've, what we've accomplished with the, communicating with all these developers. It's broadened my horizons to even know that there's this many Black creators out there. Although I feel that I'm well connected, there's a lot of amazing projects that just didn't come to light until the fund existed, and these developers are like, oh, well, can you help me, this type of thing. And also it's amazing to that Humble is working with us, really care about it, about the projects, and care about our perspective, like Site and my perspective on this, as Black professionals in the industry, and that the money is being put, like, is actually going out to these developers, because there's so many programs that kind of, they'll go up and then they'll disappear. And that's what a lot of the initial conversation was, about abroad, while we were trying to figure out how the program was going to work and like evolving the program. We were actually helping to fund these games, and I hope that it sets precedents to other establishments that a change could actually happen, because it really means a lot. And I'll step back from that.
Well, thank you both. Yeah, at this time, we would love to open up to the wider audience to answer any questions you may have.
I'll quick start while we wait for folks to post to the chat, which is, so I just want to be really clear on one thing. So the money is like, there's no strings attached. This is not an investment. You're not taking any kind of equity stake. There's no like first look kind of thing. It's really a grant for the recipient to create their project, right?
Correct, for the most part. As I mentioned, there's one stipulation where if a developer wishes to work with a publisher, that they pitch to us first. So
you get a first look.
We get a first look, but within 30 days, we will expedite that conversation with the developer to see if a deeper partnership can work out. And in the event that it doesn't, there are no strings attached to repayment. They don't have to repay and anything that we funded them, and instead they can go seek other funding opportunities. Yes.
Great. And one more question before we get to Shannon's question. So you did talk about commercial viability as one of the criteria, but clearly a major intent here is really to advance the careers, the capacity of Black game developers. So how do you weigh that? I mean, that it could be a really promising developer, whose project may not have the strongest commercial viability. How do you weigh those two desired impacts?
I'll jump in on that. I mean, through my experience, John is amazing. Like, he's got mad experience with finding games and that type of thing. I've been in the industry for 12 years, and I do a lot of curation for my own stuff and for this. And it's not just commercial viability is one of the the pillars of Humble Publishing. So we want to make sure that they have a chance to get a publisher. But outside of that, we want to also make sure that what they're putting out to the world has some kind of social impact, whether they're a pillar in the community. But as far as the game is concerned, does it have really interesting and focused visuals and aesthetics? Does it have interesting gameplay mechanics? Is it going to be commercially viable for the developer? Like, after they release their game, can they actually profit off of it and make a living from their game? Some games are more artistic and nuanced than just a commercially viable game, but we want to give them the tools to make them successful as business people and as artists in their own right. So when we're looking at games, we're like, okay, how is this unique how could they profit off of it? How could they possibly become a publisher? And then we kind of tap into that. And that's when that's where our initial questions come from, when we're starting to the communication with the developers.
Great. That's right. That's a great answer. Thank you so much for that. So Shannon asks, how many developers have you funded so far? And maybe also give us an idea of if there's an average grant size or average amount you funded.
Yeah, as Kamini mentioned, we funded 17 developers within the first year, and grant size. Kamini, do you want to answer that?
Or range?
I mean, we can. I guess an average, we could say, it's somewhere in the 5 digits. But again, it's startup funds, so it's meant to really help the developers get started. But we do and are open to having discussions with developers depending on what their needs are, versus what the scope of the project might be.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. It's not a one size fits all. It's looking at what the needs of the project and the developers are to make sure that they're supported.
Great, thank you. So Debbie asks, are there mentorship opportunities? You sort of touched on this, I think. She says she's a new Black game developer who's looking for encouragement and guidance. And jumping on that question, DDK says, if an applicant is not selected, but maybe is a developer of promise and you want to support them, how else can you do that, or how else do you do that? So again, beyond the pure funding, how else do you work with the community?
Well, I will say, as soon as as we look through and evaluate the games, if we see developers of promise or games of promise, even if it doesn't fit right now, we will reach out. Like, I will personally reach out and say, hey, I saw your game. It looks amazing. Are there other ways that I can help you? And that being, outside of, like I kind of mentioned before, and this is actually supported by Humble Bundle, is I throw an event called the Media Indie Exchange, which really grew this year due to broadcasting partners with, Twitch and GameSpot and IGN. And we did this thing called Black Voices in Gaming. And with that has grown exponentially. And we're building a community of these Black game developers so they can all communicate in Discord. We did the freshman class where we showcased all of their characters in an illustration, most of which were developers from the Black Game Developer Fund. So it's like I really care about the community, and so I will. And also, here's another thing: is like, as many folks know, it's about hustling and it's about networking. So the folks who are very persistent, although we didn't select them, that helps because we're looking at tons of games all the time. We're trying to communicate with the developers that we're already working with. But we also want, when we hear someone being persistent, we're like, okay, this person really needs help, or they need someone to get slotted. They need to get slotted into the network, or let me give this person feedback because they have drive. And so that's typically how it works.
Great. So Justice asks, and I feel like, Justin, maybe you just answered this question. So Justice is really asking, so I think beyond, if I interpret the question correctly, beyond the immediate work you do, how are you building a sort of a bigger effort or movement to really support Black game developers? Is there a strategy here, I guess, that extends beyond what you can do yourselves? I think, Justin, you just sort of touched on that. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I would also say with the BGDF, we're working on expanding what we're doing with this fund. So we've been connecting people with the help of John to other folks. We've been talking to like the Niantic Fund. We've been talking to some other folks in the space. And we're broadening what we do as far as ways to support the developer outside of, like, suppose they don't get publishing from Humble. We still want to help them manifest their their creativity and success. So what are the next steps? We're not just going to we're not going to just drop off the face of the earth. We want to build upon that. And when we want the developers to also talk to each other, that's very, very important to build that community. So yeah.
Are you do you actually convene like the cohort of grantees in some way? Do you network them, pull them together? And just sort of another facet of that, since this is, as I understand it, this is an international or a global effort, right? You really want to make sure you're including developers from around the world. Is there also benefit to that, to sort of again, convening people?
There are developers from Brazil now, London, Africa, which is, of course, amazing. Like there are developers literally all over the world right now that we're helping to support. And that's what I'm kind of getting at is with BGDF, we're going to be broadening that. But right now, since we're building that out, I've been doing it through some of the platforms I've been working on, like the Black Game Developer Fund, Black Voices in Gaming, where there is a Discord channel and they're all starting to discuss things. And there's actually just a channel that's limited to Black Game Developer Fund participants, and they're able to communicate as well. So yeah, I feel personally it's about building community, because when I was starting out, I had no community. It was a hard time. I knew a few people in the space that were, Black as well, but that was just, it was difficult. So I want to make sure to figure out ways to streamline that process.
And back to the sort of that this isn't a one size fits all approach. Does every project, every applicant have its own time frame in terms of when you would anticipate seeing some kind of result or some kind of feedback? Or I'm sure there's some kind of reporting obligation or where they have to share something. How does that work? Is it really, do you really negotiate that differently with every applicant, every grantee?
Yes, we do. So within the term sheet is very loose. As I said, it's only a 2-page agreement. We set up that we pay the devs initially, half of the funding so that they can get started, and then to kind of mimic what they will encounter, in a larger publisher or an investor agreement, we do set up 2 other milestones, so that and achievable milestones too. We work with the developer, and they tell us how long it will take them to complete the project, to hit that midway point. And the midway point also serves, as a great check-in with us on the team to be able to give valuable feedback. We don't want to wait until the end of their prototyping phase to give them what could be really important feedback that helps helps them navigate to a better prototype. So yes, it's not a one size fits all agreement, and it's very much up to the developer.
So I think you alluded to that, one, in an ideal world, you may be the first money in, or maybe that's not ideal, but it sounds like you most likely will be the first money in, and to get the project to a point where it could attract either other funding or a publisher. Are you also looking at building this fund, sort of the initial money, with other partners, or do you feel like $1 million is great. Does that seem like the right size for the moment for this, or do you look to building it in some way, expanding that fund, the pool of money for the seed funding?
How many do you want to?
Sure. As JP mentioned in his chat, we had a lot of learnings in the first year, and it is an annual 1 million fund, and we made the shift to startup funds. So we're continuing to learn, and we are open to looking at ways that we can bring more companies into the conversation to kind of grow the reach and provide more funding. We're definitely committed to continuing our efforts and growing them.
Great. So we're just out of time. Judith asks, do you see a need for more real-time business education to Black developers? So I'm gathering that she means sort of beyond the sort of the creative challenges or whatever, that there's just sort of hardcore business support. Is that something that you guys offer?
I would say 100% there is a need for more business education in Black developers. That is like most of what we've seen, is that it's multifaceted. There's the creative aspect, but then there's the business aspect, understanding their go-to-market strategy, their publishing strategy if they're going to self-publish, their console strategy, like and figuring out that network. So that is something that we're as an ancillary, move that we're communicating with the developers on. I mean, I wish Site, I wanted to drop it off to Site because she's in a area where they really need that, and she's been helping to create plans and communicate with developers on that.
Can I have 1 minute to say something? Because I actually did want to say something related to that. From the previous question from Justice. So Justice was asking if there are any learnings we've had with the BGDF that have helped shape the wider strategy. And it kind of connects to what we're talking about right now with the need for real-time business education, because a lot of people aren't, a lot of developers, they haven't gone through a path that helps them learn how to actually sell their games to publishers or pitch their games correctly. So there is definitely a need, and I think we've gone some way into that. Like especially if you use the pitch deck, initially games were submitting their own pitch decks, but now there's a pitch deck which developers can use, and it gives you all the points you need, and it's quite comprehensive, and it's quite comprehensive in telling you why and what you should put in there. So there are little things like that that show us that people do need more. And just generally, yes, there is a need for real-time business education, and it's a worldwide thing, not just for particular people.
Great. So thank you. So unfortunately our time is up, so I think we have to leave it there. But again, maybe Kamini, maybe you can put the slide back up that has the contact information for folks. And also, again, if you didn't get your question answered, or if you have another question, I think you could also try and direct message the team through the People tab, or reach out to them with the contact information here. All right. So again, thank you all so much. Really, really great. And you're doing great work. Thank you so much.